Chilling tales for dark nights.
Want to make sure you never miss a Chilling Tales for Dark Nights video again? Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell to turn on notifications.
It's time to turn off the lights and turn on the dark.
Chilling tales for dark nights.
Good evening, listener. You're listening to Chilling Tales for Dark Nights. On tonight's edition, we invite you to leave behind your safe reality and descend with us into the frightening depths of the most terrifying imaginations with 2 audio adaptations of frightening fiction about reckless relationships and unhealthy obsessions. I'm your host, Steve Taylor, and tonight I'll be your guide as we traverse the dimly lit corridors of your darkest dreams. I also wanted to take a moment to thank you for all your donations. We still need your help. Every share, donation, and comment of support helps. Let's keep growing together. Joining us tonight to help bring to life the frightening fiction of Lucretia Vastea and Reyes, our voice talents Geoff Sturtevant, myself Steve Taylor, Melissa Medina, Danielle Hewitt, and Olivia Steele. Now, get your ticket ready, take your seat in our theater of the minds, and brace yourself. It's time to turn off the lights and turn on the dark. Our first tale this evening is written by Lucretia Vastea and performed by our ever-beloved Geoff Sturtevant, myself Steve Taylor, and Melissa Medina. In it, we meet a man wrapped up in one of the sweetest things there is, forbidden love. But when the bad begins to outweigh the good, well, that's not so sweet. Now, without further ado, I present to you Trick.
The doorbell rang, and Bruce dropped his bottle of cologne mid-spray. The thing hit the lip of the sink and shattered every which way, in an explosion of liquid odors and pale blue shards of, not plastic, but not quite glass either. Under normal circumstances, Bruce would have cursed, but these were no normal circumstances. Who cared that he just detonated $200 worth of odor he could only afford once a year? She had arrived. She was finally here. After 9 months of chatting, reminiscing, and, God bless Johnny Walker, flirting, Bruce managed to bag the hottest woman he had ever known. Bruce sprinted to his front door and opened it so fast the hinges didn't even have the chance to squeak. There she was, in all her blonde, blue-eyed bombshell beauty. Sanaya LaFonte. She was just as breathtaking as she had been on their first day of middle school. It made Bruce believe in God.
Trick or treat?
Asked Sanaya. Bruce blew a raspberry. Oh, you're a treat if I ever seen one.
Cringe,
said Sanaya, but her smile disclosed pleasure and flattery. Sanaya dropped the neon green sports bag she was carrying and threw her arms around her boyfriend. They kissed, groped, and kissed some more. and Bruce's laughing reminder that they should probably get her bag inside was met with more kissing and groping. By the time the first items of clothing met the floor, Sanaya's bag was a chore meant for the future. Bruce was backed up to his bedroom. He'd spent the better part of the last 3 days vacuuming, mopping, dusting, and arranging his inherited home to peak cleanliness. He even ironed the bed sheets. The bed sheets. But Sanaya neither noticed nor seemed to care. All she wanted was to tend to her and her boyfriend's needs. Bruce believed in God, all right. And if it meant keeping the woman of his dreams by his side, Bruce would happily commit to going to church every Sunday.
I needed that,
Was the first thing Sanaya said after they were done. She was trailing mandala loops on Bruce's chest with her finger and stopped only to kiss his shoulder every few seconds. Bruce was levitating. "You and me both, gorgeous," he answered. "I still can't believe this is real. Pinch me." Sanaya pinched the skin between his clavicles and twisted. Bruce concluded that, yes, it was indeed real life. He yelled, "Abuse!" and Sanaya laughed. The mock altercation degenerated into tickles, more pinches, and more kissing. It only stopped when the girl remembered her bag at the front door and sent Bruce to drag it inside, wrapped in the bedsheet he ironed in vain. "Traveling lights in?" asked Bruce once the sports bag was safe in his vestibule. "This thing weighs nothing. Looks radioactive, though." Sanaya appeared in the doorway to his bedroom, dressed in one of his t-shirts.
The big bags are still en route,
she said. "To your parents' place?" asked Bruce. Sanaya nodded. Bruce asked more questions. "When did you tell him you'd arrive?"
November 2nd.
"So what? You're staying with me for 2 days, and after that, you'll go 3 houses down and pretend you're fresh off the plane?"
Pretty much, yeah.
After several weeks of walking on clouds and seeing the world through pink lenses, the first dash of a negative emotion kicked Bruce like a punch to the ribs.
What?
Asked Sanaya.
We talked about this. You said you're okay with keeping it low-key.
Bruce sighed. "I need a smoke," he announced. He put his underwear back on and went into the kitchen to satisfy his craving. Bruce opened the window and leaned his upper body over the frame. The cold October draft kicked the smoke back into his face. After 3 drags, Sanaya followed him into the kitchen, wrapped her arms around his waist in a placatory gesture. Bruce liked it too much to show that he wasn't really angry.
I'll tell them eventually,
said Sanaya, with her head resting on Bruce's back.
I promise. I'll tell my parents we're dating, just not now. I can't.
Bruce felt like a fool. He knew, of course. And he reassured her every time that he was okay with her pace, her timeline. He wasn't upset that he wouldn't parade her around town anytime soon. He wasn't even upset that she was weary to be seen with him in public. He was just bitter that Sanaya was going to stay in town for over 2 weeks, but wouldn't allocate more than 2 days of that time to be with her boyfriend. Suggestions to sneak out at night were met with firm refusals, as were secret dates and meetups at the spots in town that people the age of Sanaya's parents didn't even know about. Sanaya refused vehemently. She didn't want to risk it. "I'm sorry, babe," said Bruce. "I know I said I was okay with this, but now that you're here, 2 days seems like nothing. I'm being unfair to you."
No, you're not,
said Sanaya.
It's on me. I should be brave enough to just tell him.
Bruce threw his cigarette out the window and turned to face his girlfriend. He took her face in his hands and kissed her forehead. "Your dad has a heart condition," he said. "I know you can't risk telling him about me right now. It could kill him." Sanaya scoffed.
What could kill him is finding out the real reason why I broke off my engagement to Wyatt. If Dad survives that, he will murder the guy.
Bruce chuckled. "Frankly, I wouldn't mind murdering Wyatt myself. But I won't. Because for one, that would reinforce my bad image around here. And two, the guy did me the greatest favor of my life." Sanaya stretched up on her tippy toes and kissed him on the lips.
Bruce, do you love me?
Bruce was caught off guard. He could lie to her, but he chose not to. For the first time in his life, he was okay with showing a bit of vulnerability. "With all my heart. And if my heart is too compromised for you, then I love you with all my other organs." Sanaya kissed him again.
I'm going to tell him, I promise. When the time is right, I'm telling him everything. I'll say that if he doesn't want to lose me, he'll have to accept you as my partner. Because you're wonderful. And I love you. And I made up my mind over who I want to grow old with.
Bruce felt nauseous with delight. He wrapped his arms around his longtime crush and kissed her breathless. The doorbell rang. A child asked a question on the other side of Bruce's front door. The question was muffled, but indisputable. Bruce and Sanaya looked at each other questioningly. "Already?" asked Bruce. "It's not even fully dark out."
Did you get any candy?
asked Sanaya. Bruce scoffed. "Nah." A twinge of judgment brushed over the girl's face.
Don't answer then,
she advised. Bruce left the kitchen and strutted to his front door with all the confidence of a property owner. At the sound of him approaching, several tiny feet scattered off his porch. Bruce waited for a beat, and then opened the door. On his porch, he found a ghost. Bruce looked further on, behind the ghost, all the way to the end of the walkway and the hedge that fenced his property. Several small heads of ghouls and zombies ducked behind the hedge, whisper shouting at each other to be quiet. Bruce shook his head with a smile on his face, but the ghost on his welcome mat wasn't as relaxed. The little boy was shaking. The sheet over his head looked like an overzealous lampshade during an earthquake. Bruce recognized the big onyx marbles that looked up at him through the yellow-edged cut holes in the stained fabric. It wasn't the first year Raj Advani was wearing this costume. The Advanis were either poor or resistant to the holiday. Bruce had an inkling they were both.
Boo!
Said Raj. Bruce laughed.
Trick or treat?
Asked Raj. Bruce crouched down until he was at the boy's eye level. It took everything in Raj not to take a step back, or several. The boy's nostrils flared beneath the sheet. He was probably confused at the abundance of cologne coming off big burly Bruce. Or he was scared. Trick, answered Bruce, looking deep into the boy's eyes. The boy's earthquake was getting stronger. Raj's trick-or-treat bag was a ceramic bowl of all things, with most of the red pattern hidden beneath 2 layers of candy. The bowl and the candy were vibrating. Raj's delicate hands were sweating on his mother's crockery. He turned his head slightly and then back again. He wanted to look behind himself, to make sure his friends were still monitoring him from behind the hedge and ready to jump in at any sign of trouble. Raj didn't dare turn his head all the way, though. it was safer to keep his eyes on Big Bruce than seek help from scrawny kids who were just as scared and powerless as he. "Go ahead, kid. Trick me," Bruce provoked him. "I dare ya." Raj ran out of courage. He booked it. He lost several pieces of candy in his pursuit of freedom, and just when he reached the end of Bruce's walkway, he tripped on his ghost costume and fell flat on his front. The ceramic bowl exploded on the tarmac. Candy flew everywhere. Some pieces even landed on the property of Ms. Cherry, who lived across from Bruce, and had the biggest eastern white pine in her front yard the county had ever seen. Bruce laughed so hard at the ghost's mishap that he gave himself stomach cramps. Raj started to cry. He got to his feet and resumed running. His friends were long gone by this point. "Wait, kid," Bruce managed to cry out through wheezing spurts of laughter. "Come back. Come get your candy. I'll behave, I promise."
Baby, that's enough.
Sanaya admonished him gently. Bruce closed the front door, laughing still. "Works every year," he said, proud of himself. It was too early to go to bed, but the lovers didn't have anything better to do. After indulging once more in Sanaya's embrace, Bruce slept like the dead until morning. No other trick-or-treaters rang Bruce's doorbell that Halloween. Or any Halloween that came after it. Bruce woke up to an empty bed and the doorbell ringing like someone fell asleep on the button. "Sin?" he asked in the stuffy air of his bedroom, too sleep-ridden to be heard beyond his immediate vicinity. The doorbell kept ringing. The person on the other side was in a hurry. Sanaya must have slipped out to get breakfast and forgot to grab the key. Bruce got up groggily and headed for the door. "Did you lock yourself out, you little?" But the rest of his question died in his throat. Bruce didn't open the door to his girlfriend holding grocery bags, bouncing on the balls of her feet from fear of being spotted by the neighbors. He opened the door to her father. "Sheriff LaFonte," said Bruce. "Good morning. What are you doing here?"
Who were you expecting, son?
Bruce froze. "Nobody, sir."
Really? Someone locked themselves outside, did they? The little...
Bruce's face was aflame. He didn't want to answer the sheriff. Confirming that he had a visitor would only lead to more questions, and he couldn't risk ruining the one good thing he had going on in his life. So he kept quiet.
You have a lady friend over, Bruce?
The sheriff was goading him, not humorlessly. The old man's mouth was pinched in a smile, and Bruce didn't know what to make of it. If he knew that his precious daughter shacked up with Bruce for 2 days, he was doing a great job at keeping his fury in check. Bruce cleared his throat. "What can I do for you, sir?" The sheriff pursed his lips.
Could I please come in? It's a rather delicate matter.
And Sanaya's bag was right by the door. Neon green, with the unmistakable caption of her university printed on the side in bold black letters. "I'd rather not do that, sir. My place is not quite visitor-friendly at the moment. I worked my butt off these past weeks and didn't find the time to clean properly. I can't let you see my mama's house like this. She raised me better than that." It would have been Bruce's lawful right to deny the sheriff access to his home and spare him the obvious lie. Sheriff LaFonte was gracious enough not to point it out. He sighed and accepted the insult to his intelligence with his head held high. Bruce braced himself for the incoming confrontation. Deny everything, was playing on a loop inside his head, like a mantra.
There's been a call from the Advani residence,
said the sheriff.
Raj never made it home last night.
Bruce shook his head, unsure if he heard right. What?
Raj Advani went out trick-or-treating last night. You know, Halloween.
Bruce bit his lip. Apparently, it was the sheriff's turn to insult his intelligence. The sheriff went on.
The boy was last seen around 6:30, and from what I understand, he was with a group of friends. But then something happened, and the friends dispersed, and it has come to my attention that they dispersed in front of your house. Nobody has seen or heard from Raj since.
What are you saying?
I'm saying that you are the last person who has seen the kid before he vanished last night.
Yeah, but he ran away.
Excuse me?
He was here on the porch for 10 seconds, 15 tops. And then he ran away.
He ran away, really? Then why would he do something like that?
The sheriff was playing dumb. Bruce sighed, exasperated. I didn't have any treats to give him, so I asked him to trick me. He didn't know what to do, got scared, and ran away.
Did he now? Interesting. That is a different story from the one I've heard.
Bruce's blood ran cold. What story did you hear exactly?
I'd be happy to tell you, son, down at the sheriff's office.
Bruce and the sheriff had a stare down for several heartbeats. It lasted an eternity. Sir, I didn't do anything. Whatever happened to the kid has nothing to do with me.
I believe you, son, but it's protocol.
Is it really necessary, though?
As a matter of fact, yes, it is. You refused to let me into your house, so I have no choice but to kindly invite you to mine.
Sir, we've been neighbors for over a decade. You know me.
Exactly, Bruce. I know you.
As far as Bruce could tell, Sanaya got her blue eyes from her father. Hers, however, were made of summer sky, whereas the sheriff's were made of cold steel. Bruce didn't have a choice. Could you give me an hour, please, sir? I first need to shower and drop something off at work. It would also help if I explained to my boss in person why I won't be coming into work today. The only truth in that statement was the shower part. Bruce reeked of sweat, sex, and an overpriced fragrance. Work was not an issue. Bruce already took several days of unpaid vacation in anticipation of Sanaya's visit. The sheriff sighed heavily and looked at his watch.
1 hour. If you're not in my office by 9:26 a.m., I'm picking you up in handcuffs. And no funny business either. My whole crew is out there looking for the boy today, and they know your car.
I have no reason to make a run for it, sir. I'm innocent. You want me in your office by 9:26? I'll be there by 9:20. I'll go shower now. So see you in a bit, Sheriff. Bruce closed the door and glued his ear to the wood, waiting for the sheriff's receding steps. The sheriff took a while, but left eventually. Bruce looked out the vestibule window and didn't cease looking until the sheriff got in his car and drove away. Once the sheriff's car was out of sight, Sanaya's head popped out of the bathroom.
Why was my dad here?
Bruce told her. Sanaya was appalled, both by the child's disappearance, as well as her father's suspicion of Bruce. She promised Bruce a reward for covering for her after he got back from the sheriff's office. But that promise didn't ease the stress in either of them.
How come they already started looking for him?
Asked Sanaya.
Aren't they supposed to wait 24 hours first?
Not when they're this young. The first 24 hours are crucial. Waiting them out would be stupid. Besides, you know this town. It's a tight-knit community. A kid misses their curfew by half an hour, and the whole county gets stapled with missing person flyers.
I know, right? Some people are still asleep at this hour. I bet the kid is just sleeping off his sugar spikes at a friend's house.
Bruce realized something. He looked at his girlfriend, wide-eyed. Sanaya's head was still poking out of the bathroom, with her silky blonde hair draped over the door handle. Do you think the kids maybe finally had enough? Asked Bruce.
What do you mean?
Asked Sanaya. I never give them treats. Every Halloween I choose the trick, but nobody tricks me. Do you think maybe this year the neighborhood kids had enough and are doing this to prank me? Sanaya was quiet for a bit.
Holy crap, babe. You might be onto something.
It makes sense, right?
Totally. Go hurry to the sheriff's office and tell my dad about this. I mean, he already knows the kids in town are thrill seekers, so it's super plausible.
The indirect praise made Bruce feel high. Besides, who the hell would kidnap a scrawny Pakistani kid?
The Advanis are Indian.
Potato, potato.
Babe, stop. You're being racist.
Whatever, said Bruce. Come out of there. I need to shower.
Nuh-uh, I'm not finished in here.
Sanaya cried out.
You reek of cologne anyway. It'll mask any other smell.
Can I at least brush my teeth?
I said I'm not done. Chew some gum. Here's some Listerine.
Sanaya handed Bruce a bottle of mouthwash, blew him a kiss, and closed and locked the bathroom door. Bruce heard water splash against his bathtub and chuckled to himself. He went to his bedroom to get dressed. Put your bag away and keep your phone nearby, Bruce yelled from the vestibule on his way out of the house. Sanaya didn't reply. I love you, Bruce tried again. But all that came from the bathroom were soft splashes and even softer humming. Sanaya was probably listening to music with headphones on. Bruce shook his head lovingly. Women, he concluded, and left for the sheriff's office. When he saw Bruce coming through the door, the sheriff whistled.
Wow, almost half an hour early. I must say, son, I'm impressed.
I skipped the shower and called in sick on my way here.
You need me to contact your boss and explain the situation?
Bruce sure hoped he wouldn't. That won't be necessary, sir. But thank you. The sheriff led Bruce into a room the size of a bathroom stall. Whoever managed to craft a table, 3 chairs, and a floor-to-ceiling file cabinet trim enough to fit in there was a master carpenter. The sheriff took a seat on the side of the table that faced the door. There was an empty chair next to him, but he gestured for Bruce to sit across from him.
So, Bruce, just so we're clear from the get-go, right now you're on neutral ground. I'm not accusing you of anything, and I'm doing my very best not to let your track record cloud my judgment.
My track record of what, sir? Weed and petty theft? That makes me a child abductor now?
How convenient of you to forget the physical altercations. It's not the weed and petty theft that make me look at you funny, son. Your temper is a problem, and you know it. That problem can handicap the best of men.
I didn't touch that kid. If anything... The sheriff raised his hand. Bruce shut up. The sheriff went on.
As I was saying, I want to assess the situation objectively, so I ask you kindly, from neighbor to neighbor, to tell me all about the interaction you had with Raj Advani yesterday evening, in layman's terms.
Bruce nodded, and right as he prepared to relive the event, the door opened.
Charlie,
said the sheriff.
How good of you to join us.
Charlene Martin, the sheriff's deputy, entered the stuffy room and somehow managed to glide on the seat next to the sheriff, without as much as a stumble against the furniture. The deputy's eyes were brown, but every bit as cold as the sheriff's. This was an ambush of the bad cop, worse cop variety.
Go ahead, son. You were saying?
Asked the sheriff. The deputy dropped her gaze to the paper she was holding. Highly likely, the statements from the kids who were hiding on the other side of Bruce's hedge while he was talking to Raj. No doubt, the authorities wanted to compare Bruce's story to that of the kids, which was fine by Bruce. After all, he did nothing wrong. Bruce told them what happened. He told them everything, from the bothersome trick-or-treating, although it was still bright outside, to the children fleeing his property, to Raj Advani shivering from head to toe, like he was the scapegoat who lost a bet with his friends. Bruce told them how Raj ran away when Bruce asked to be tricked, and Bruce honed down on the trick part of his story. He recalled last year's Halloween, and the Halloween before that, and the Halloween before that. Bruce explained the harmless fun he was having by asking to be tricked, and how unfair it was that every kid in the neighborhood was entitled to a treat, but never willing to come up with a trick. His argument degenerated to his meager salary, and how he couldn't use his hard-earned money to feed the neighborhood children when he could barely feed himself. He also branched out and criticized the children's parents for sending them out alone at night to beg for candy, although their cupboards back home were bursting with snacks. Every so often, he swerved back to his trick theory. The kids were out to get him. He'd been asking for a trick 1 year too many, and now the kids had finally grown old and bold. Raj would be found in no time. And if not, it had nothing to do with Bruce. But Raj would turn up. Bruce was sure of it. And the kid would laugh at everyone who fell for his little joke. While Bruce was talking, the deputy took notes. Her eyes didn't leave her papers until she sensed Bruce's rant coming to an end.
Are you done?
Asked the deputy. And Bruce, not knowing what else to say or do, nodded.
Bruce Davis, how many trick-or-treaters rang your doorbell?
To my knowledge, just the one. Can't tell you if there were more. I didn't answer the door after that.
And why is that?
Bruce shrugged. I had an early night yesterday. Was tired from work.
So you were home all night?
Correct.
Can you provide an alibi?
Bruce threw a furtive look at the sheriff. Mr. LaFonte didn't react at all. No, ma'am, Bruce replied to the deputy. Unfortunately, no. But you can ask my neighbors. I can guarantee after Raj Advani ran off my property, I haven't so much as opened the door until earlier today when the sheriff came to see me. The deputy and the sheriff exchanged a look. The sheriff nodded, and the deputy turned to Bruce once more. Bruce felt like he said the wrong thing.
Tell me something, Bruce,
said the deputy.
When you answered the door to the 8-year-old trick-or-treater yesterday, what were you wearing?
Bruce frowned. It was an odd question. What does it matter?
It matters, Bruce. Try to remember, please.
Bruce shook his head, trying to regain composure. Okay, I get it. I was in my underwear. The kid caught me at an odd time, all right? Bruce allowed himself another look at the sheriff. Busy.
Busy doing what, exactly?
The deputy pressed on. Bruce didn't answer.
All right, let me make it easy for you. Here are some statements from the kids who witnessed your interaction,
said the deputy, and dropped her gaze to her papers again. She read aloud.
Mr. Davis came out of the house in his undies. It was cold outside, but he didn't seem to mind. He was smiling down at Raj, all creepy like the Japanese devil mask. Mr. Davis was almost naked when he opened the door. He looked really happy to see Raj. And Mr. Davis was wearing a superhero costume, but his cape fell off. a weapon was poking in his shorts.
That is not true, Bruce interrupted. He felt nauseous. The unspoken accusation was outrageous. He only interacted with kids when they were playing ball in the street, and their ball landed on his property. Even then, he interacted with them to shoo them away, not to beckon them closer. He would sooner amputate his dominant arm with a burning saw than abuse a child in the same way the statement implied. However, his having something poking in his underwear when he opened the door to Raj Advani wasn't that far off from the truth. After all, Sanaya had been all over him just seconds before that. She kissed him and she told him she loved him. Bruce was only human.
Oh, this is my favorite, though.
The deputy continued.
Mr. Davis touched Raj's shoulder and invited him into the house. I heard him say he had candy, but Raj had to wait inside until Mr. Davis went to get it.
That's a lie, Bruce exploded. I never touched that kid, and I never invited him inside. The neighborhood kids know me. I don't buy candy for any brat on Halloween. I choose to get tricked year after year, and this year, they're finally doing it. Can't you see? They're in on it. All of them. This is a trick they came up with.
You don't say.
The sheriff piped up. He took the papers out of his deputy's hands. Bruce noticed the papers were damp and crumpled in the places where the deputy had her fists curled around them.
So, you mean to tell us you never yelled at Raj?
It was the sheriff's turn to read aloud.
Come back. Come get your candy. I'll behave. I promise.
Bruce was shaking. That was taken out of context. The kid slipped and fell. He dropped his candy, and I wanted to reassure him that it's safe to pick it up.
How nice. You have an explanation for that as well.
Well, yeah, because it's the truth. The deputy interrupted the two men.
Does the name Brianna Miller mean anything to you?
She asked Bruce. Her eyes were wet, and her lip was trembling.
Charlie,
warned the sheriff. The deputy didn't pay him any attention. She continued.
What about Sean Brown? Erica Hoffman? Lauren, Bobby, Keith, TJ Brooks?
Charlie, that's enough. You promised.
The sheriff tried again. But the deputy still had her eyes trained on Bruce, like she was about to gouge his eyes out with her bare fingers. Bruce was sweating so much that not even 3 bottles of expensive cologne could have masked his distress. Bruce took a deep breath and tried to get a grip on his temper. Look, he said, I know I'm not a model citizen by any stretch, but I work hard, I pay my taxes, and the only people I invite into my house are either adult friends or consenting adult women. I'm innocent. So please tell me what I need to do to prove to you I had nothing at all to do with Raj Advani's disappearance. The deputy leaned back and crossed her arms over her chest. She was shaking with rage. The sheriff didn't seem as upset.
Tell me something, son,
said the sheriff.
Who were you expecting earlier today when I came by?
Bruce didn't say anything. There was a plethora of excuses to choose from. He was seeing a married woman. He was housing a friend who just got out of jail. He was hiding a relative who ran away from their abusive partner. But Bruce's mind was all panic and no coherence. He said nothing.
Why didn't you let me come in?
Asked the sheriff. Again, Bruce said nothing. The sheriff sighed heavily.
Here's the deal, Bruce. Whether you like it or not, you are the last person who's seen the boy. This makes you a suspect. Now, not only did you refuse to let me look around your home earlier this morning, but you were also expecting a visit from this mysterious person the authorities can't know about. I hope you don't mind me saying this, but as the number one suspect in a very serious crime, you're not doing yourself any favors here. So here are your options. Option 1, I arrest you and take you into custody for 72 hours, minimum. It's going to be a lot more. It's going to be a lot more if I find something fishy. In the meantime, I'll fetch myself a search warrant of your mama's former house and go through every inch of your privacy with a fine-tooth comb. It will be thorough, it will be extensive, it will be messy, and above all, it will be intrusive, and there's nothing you can do or say to stop it.
The sheriff paused to bask in Bruce's wincing. The deputy kept shaking and avoiding eye contact. The sheriff continued.
Option number 2, you play along, and I mean full cooperation, son. Charlie and I'll follow you home. Right now. And not only will you let us in so we can look around, but you'll also ask your visitor, whoever they are, to come talk to us. What do you say?
I hope your daughter will forgive me, was what Bruce wanted to say. But he didn't. What he said was, lead the way, sir. I'll show you everything you want to see and tell you everything you want to know. Come on, baby. Pick up already. Bruce was trailing the sheriff's car back to his house. Every call he placed to Sanaya's phone went unanswered, as did the short texts he managed to fire her way before hitting the road. They were almost there. Bruce hoped Sanaya was done with her bath by then. The one thing that would be worse than her dad finding her in Bruce's apartment would be her dad finding her naked in Bruce's apartment. They arrived. The sheriff parked his car in Bruce's usual spot, so Bruce had to drive a little further ahead to park his vehicle. He was just 30 yards away from his house, but he could still see the deputy in his rearview mirror, staring mistrustfully at his car. She was probably expecting him to make a run for it. Bruce would be lying if he said he didn't think about it, but not only did that plan have an infinitesimal success rate, it would also be a surefire way to make his girlfriend's dad hate him forever. Bruce set the car in reverse, and the Listerine bottle on his passenger seat tipped over. The cap wasn't sealed properly, so the blue, minty water seeped into the passenger seat, spreading to a stain the size of a bowling ball. Bruce stopped the car and noticed the mess. "Oh, shit," he yelled, lifting the bottle upright to save what looked like a measly 2 mouthfuls of mouthwash. "God damn it." He held the bottle with 2 fingers and shook his free hand. Then he took the bottle in his free hand and shook the other one. Nothing was helping. The minty substance stuck to his skin like shine to gold. Bruce wasn't an avid shopper of tissues, but he still opened the glove compartment in search of something to wipe his hands with. At first, he didn't know what he was looking at. He was reluctant to touch it. For a short instant, he wondered if his car was malfunctioning, if the passenger airbag somehow slipped out of the dashboard and into the glove compartment. Bruce grabbed the thing and pulled at it. It went on forever. Bruce pulled at feet after feet of white sheet, albeit stained with grease and the outdoors. Then he recognized it. He didn't even have to check for the eye cutouts. And just when he thought things couldn't look any worse, he discovered the bloodstains. Never mind the Listerine stain on his passenger seat. The blood stain on Raj Advani's Halloween costume was bigger in diameter by 2 inches. Bruce saw the sheriff's deputy march toward his car in the nick of time. He stuffed the sheet back in his glove compartment and closed it shut right before Charlie Martin knocked hard on his window. Bruce showed her the stain on the passenger seat and the sticky mouthwash bottle, hence explaining his delay. The deputy understood the holdup, but neither she nor the sheriff were willing to allow him any more stalling. Once Bruce was on his porch and retrieved his house keys, the sheriff grabbed them out of his hand and unlocked the door himself. Bruce would have much preferred to explain some things to the sheriff before letting him in. How he didn't mean to hide his relationship with his daughter, but that his reputation gave him no choice. He wanted to make an oath to the man that he would give anything in the world to make his daughter happy, that he would put his life on the line for her, and that he was willing to fight and work himself to the bone to give her a good life. Once he got the door open, the sheriff took out his gun and stepped inside. "That won't be necessary, sir," Bruce told him. Charlie Martin countered.
We said full cooperation, Bruce.
The deputy also retrieved her gun and gestured for Bruce to enter the house ahead of her. Bruce complied. One step inside his home, and Bruce became acutely aware of two things. One, the house was empty. Two, Sanaya hadn't moved her green neon bag from the vestibule like he'd asked her to. Something was wrong.
Clear?
Yelled the sheriff out of the main bedroom. He then went to the kitchen, gun raised against his shoulder.
Clear?
He yelled again, after inspecting all the cupboards in the pantry.
Sir, I don't think anyone is in here. We should probably check the cellar,
said the deputy.
In a moment,
answered the sheriff.
I also want to check the second bathroom and the laundry room and the bathroom.
The sheriff tried the bathroom door, and to Bruce's horror, it was locked. If Sanaya was unconscious in there, he was well and truly screwed. Sir, let me explain first, Bruce yelled, and took 2 steps toward the sheriff. Charlie aimed her gun between his shoulder blades.
One more step and I'll shoot,
she warned.
Do it, Roger.
Mr. LaFonte didn't need to be told twice. He didn't even beckon whoever was inside to come out. He followed his instincts and kicked the bathroom door handle again and again and again, until the door opened with a slam against the wall tiles. The sheriff whimpered and grabbed his chest. He swayed on his feet, seemingly about to collapse at any second.
Sir, are you okay?
Asked the deputy in a panic. The sheriff lowered his gun and turned to look at Bruce. They were both as white as bone.
Bruce, what the hell is going on?
Asked the sheriff. Bruce couldn't hold it in anymore. He began to cry. I wanted to tell you, sir, but she wanted us to wait for the right time. She said you have a heart condition and that you were too fond of Wyatt to accept me, of all people, as her new partner. Sheriff LaFonte closed his eyes and shook his head. What? Sanaya, sir. Sanaya and I have been dating for the past 9 months. The sheriff's deputy gasped. Sheriff LaFonte's gun was in Bruce's face faster than he could say, "Uncle." The deputy moved away from the 2 men.
What did you just say to me, boy?
Asked the sheriff. Bruce answered him through hiccups. I said, Sanaya and I...
Sanaya was killed 6 years ago today by her psychotic fiancé. Try again.
Bruce shook his head. The old man was mistaken. He had to be. He embraced Sanaya repeatedly not even a day ago. She was warm and soft and wonderful. No, it can't be. But Sheriff Lafante would hear none of it. He grabbed Bruce by the scruff of his neck like he was full of fleas and weighed nothing, and dragged him into the bathroom. The sheriff then thrust Bruce forward, making him fall on his knees in front of the bathtub. Blood. The tub was full of blood. It was so black it could just as well have been tar with a coating of molasses, but the smell was unmistakable. Bruce puked on himself.
Sir?
The deputy entered the bathroom cautiously. She summoned her god at the side of the tub, but that was not the reason why she approached the sheriff. She wanted to show him the contents of the neon green bag she found in the vestibule. The sheriff looked inside and found candy. The broken handle from a Halloween pumpkin bucket. Discontinued chocolate. More candy. A shard of ceramic from a bowl with a red pattern. The sheriff grabbed the bottom of the sports bag and emptied its contents right there, next to Bruce, on the bathroom floor. For the most part, the bag rained Halloween candy, but mixed alongside the candy were some trick-or-treat bags. 3 were made of plastic, 2 of paper. 1 was made of ceramic, but broken beyond recognition. Charlene Martin bent down to pick up one of the 2 pumpkin buckets. Something was scribbled in black marker on the bottom. She showed it to the sheriff. It said, "Property of T.J. Brooks."
We found him, Roger.
Said the deputy.
Bruce is the All Hallows collector.
While the sheriff cuffed, pulled him upright, and acquainted him with his Miranda rights, Bruce chewed over the name in his mind. He vaguely remembered hearing it before. On the news, maybe? A kidnapper/killer of children who struck their town every year on Halloween. Bruce never cared enough to read about it. Not only did Bruce not have any kids of his own, but he never cared to have them. A child kidnapper ought to be the concern of parents, not rowdy bachelors. Yet he knew without a shadow of a doubt that if Sanaya ever asked him to procreate with her, he would have fathered a whole basketball team. Bruce tried to make sense of his surroundings. He was innocent. He was clean. His fingerprints couldn't be anywhere near the things and places that were supposed to incriminate him. Also, his bathtub held 80 gallons of liquid. A killer would have to drain well over 100 kids the size of Raj to achieve the feat in Bruce's bathroom. Nothing made sense. For a few seconds, that is. Things became clear for Bruce once the sheriff and the sheriff's deputy guided him outside. Bruce saw her the second he was out of the house. She was hanging upside down from one of the highest branches on the eastern white pine in Miss Cherry's front yard. Her hair blew in the soft noon wind, and her blue eyes glowed like laser beams through the shadows. The deputy reached the sheriff's car first and opened the rear door. When Bruce and the sheriff got close enough, the sheriff placed one hand on Bruce's bicep and the other one on his head. "Mr. Lafante?" asked Bruce. By this point, the sheriff had regained enough composure to be civil again.
Yes, Bruce?
What color were Sanaya's eyes? And to both Bruce and Charlie Martin's surprise, the sheriff answered,
Cognac brown. Like her mother's.
The sheriff pushed Bruce's head down and stuffed him in the back seat. Bruce kept looking up at the eastern white pine from inside the car, and finally noticed the rest of them. The 6 missing children hung haphazardly from the tree's branches, like Halloween versions of Christmas ornaments. Like Sanaya, all 6 children were upside down and looking at Bruce with eyes as blue as the Aegean Sea. Raj hung from almost the same altitude as his new mother. Bruce looked into his striking orbs and saw him smile. Raj brought a finger to his lips, reminding Bruce of his first Miranda right, the right to remain silent. Coming from one of them, it was no longer a right, but a stipulation. Bruce would bear it in mind. After all, life in prison sounded slightly better than death by draining.
I hope you enjoyed Trick, as written by Lucretia Vastea and performed by Geoff Sturtevant, myself Steve Taylor, and Melissa Medina. Our second tale of the evening is written by Reyes and performed by Danielle Hewitt, Olivia Steele, and Geoff Sturtevant. In it, we meet Megan, a girl obsessed with serial killers. Now, without further ado, I present to you I Heart Serial Killers.
Megan wasn't your average 16-year-old. She was obsessed with serial killers. Like every girl her age, she spent most of her time on social media, preferably on Instagram. Unlike girls her age, her Instagram didn't contain numerous duck-lip selfies, makeup posts, misspelled memes, or Starbucks fraps. Megan's Instagram was filled with notorious serial killers and their horrific crime scenes. She loved to post about Jeffrey Dahmer, Richard Ramirez, and lesser-known serial killers such as Charles Howard, Smitty Schmidt Jr., also known as the Pied Piper of Tucson. Her knowledge about these killers made her look like a total know-it-all in the world of horrible, true crimes. Her Man Crush Monday, #MCM, on Instagram, was always Ted Bundy. And occasionally, when she wanted to switch it up, those 2 boys who shot up Columbine. Oh my god. Another dumb bitch reported my picture, Megan said as she and her friend Tara were sitting out for PE on the bleachers. It was a crisp autumn morning. Fall leaves of brown and yellow decorated the school grounds, and the running track that Megan and Tara always refused to step on.
Which picture?
Said Tara as she kept her gaze on her own phone screen. Her brown hair danced in the wind. The picture of Dahmer's apartment. You know, the one with the mutilated body. Tara giggled.
Yeah, oh my god. People are such pussies. Why are they always reporting your page? They should just follow you or not look at your page at all.
They should unfollow and swallow, said Megan. They laughed like it was funny. After the laugh riot ceased, both girls attended their respective phones.
What? We have a serial killer here in Devil's Hill?
Said Tara as she went back to gaze upon her phone. Liar, let me see, said Megan as she reached for Tara's phone. Tara backed away a little and showed Megan the screen. The last time she handed her phone over to Megan, she was swiping away at her pics, seeing topless photos of Tara that were meant for a boy she liked.
See, read the headline.
The headline read, Connected Murders. A 4th victim found dead on the south side of Devil's Hill. Oh my god, that's so cool. Did they say who was murdered? Megan shouted with a smile splayed across her face.
Let me see,
said Tara as she swiped her finger on the screen.
It says 44-year-old Kathleen Virgil.
Megan quickly Googled Kathleen Virgil murder scene and was pleased to find what she was hoping for. Holy shit, Tara. This old lady was strangled to death with a lamp cord. It also looks like she was stabbed a lot. Gross. Tara looked over at Megan's phone and instantly made a face of disgust.
Megan, why'd you show me that? Ugh, her neck looks like a fish's mouth. Is that from the cord or a knife?
I don't know, but I'm posting this. The serial killer that descended upon a vicious killing spree was 30-year-old Eddie Hamilton. He came from Fort Worth, Texas, riding in on a Greyhound. He chose to do the devil's deed in Devil's Hill because, in all honesty, he just liked the name.
It's so fucking rock and roll.
He will tell an interviewer later on after he was caught. It was a highly viewed special. It also established him as a sex symbol to many women around the country. Half of them sent him marriage proposals while he was in prison on death row. Eddie was a very handsome man. His looks were beyond easy on the eyes of the women he targeted. He met these women at bars, but the last two that he killed were from dating sites. Eddie left no evidence at his crime scenes. He was practical, methodical, and most importantly, fucking careful. He stabbed his first victim after having consensual sex with her. It was always consensual. Well, he didn't just stab her. Eddie stabbed the hell out of her. Diana Ferguson, age 21, was found dead in her studio apartment with 44 stab wounds to her neck and chest. Her boyfriend had walked in and discovered her body in the bedroom. Of course, the boyfriend was the prime suspect, but there was absolutely no evidence pointing to him. No evidence was left behind, and there were no leads. The second victim, Christina Appleton, age 28, was found dead in an alley in the back of a bar. She was brutally beaten with a bat. The autopsy report showed splinters stuck in her skull. She was also strangled by the leather strap of her purse. The third victim, Ariana Moreno, age 21, was found stuffed in a suitcase at Devil's Hill Park, placed in the open. A homeless man discovered the gruesome contents when he got curious, hoping to find something he could pawn, shoot up, snort, or smoke. The homeless man couldn't stop crying because of what he had seen. When he finally got the suitcase to open by beating the shit out of it with a branch, the head of Ariana lolled out, exposing her twisted and broken neck. It was her eyes. Her eyes messed him up the most.
They were so pretty.
He told News 13.
Her innocence was still there in them cold blue eyes. Monster didn't take that. But you could see she was in pain.
Outside of Devil's Hill High, sitting on the cold bleachers, Megan was posting the fourth victim's photo. She ended up posting the death photos of Diana, Christina, and Ariana that night. She received many likes, comments, and new followers. A week later, Meg and Tara sat on the same spot on the bleachers during the mile run. Megan was infuriated. This girl claims to be that girl Ariana's sister. Shit. Even if she really is, I don't care. I will post whatever the hell I want. It's my profile. Tara looked a little puzzled and said,
Well, I can kind of see where she's coming from. I wouldn't want to see my sister like that, especially on Instagram. Her body looked extremely fucked up. Who knows what that guy did to her?
Tara swiped her hair away from her face. Megan looked at her with her intense blue eyes. Her hair was like a red fire in the autumn breeze. Tara finished.
I wouldn't like it if people were posting my dead sister's murder photos.
I heard you the first time. Don't be a pussy, Tara. You're acting like them. Besides, you posted a clip of that girl committing suicide on Facebook Live. I'm pretty sure she had siblings. Didn't stop you then.
Whatever. I'm just saying, that's kind of fucked up when you really think about it.
That's the thing. I don't think about it, said Megan as she fixed her eyes on her phone screen. I'll post whatever I want. If I knew what the Devil's Hill serial killer looked like, I'd post him as my Man Crush Monday. Tara laughed and the tension evaporated. The following week, Megan didn't show up to PE. Tara texted her but got nothing back. It was Halloween. Tara expected Megan to show up for sure. She liked Halloween just as much as she fancied serial killers. It was a dark, gloomy morning when Tara sat on the bleachers by herself. The dark, fluffy clouds hung low like drunk people casually strolling. Tara took her phone out of her pocket as soon as she saw the PE teacher leave her area. Tara's heart leapt in her chest. It seemed as if everyone and everything stood still. Her green eyes were like giant marbles protruding from sockets. She couldn't believe what she was seeing on her Instagram feed. No, it just couldn't be. This was the real world. Nothing like this was supposed to happen in the real world. Tara was looking at the mutilated body of her best friend since kindergarten. Tara's eyes immediately filled with tears. Her heart was beating faster and faster. Her brain felt too big for her head. She couldn't breathe. The picture, unbeknownst to Tara, was posted by the sister of Ariana Moreno. It showed Megan in her bedroom. It looked as if a mad painter splattered the walls with buckets of blood. Megan's eyes were open, locked in a state of shock. They weren't blue like the sky anymore. They had turned a light gray. Her head was barely clinging to her neck by a small piece of flesh and tendons. She was cut horrifically. Her intestines hung around her knees, spilling out from her abdomen. She was naked. Tara noticed the only hashtag attached to the post. Hashtag I heart serial killers.
I hope you enjoyed I Heart Serial Killers, as written by Reyes and performed by Danielle Hewitt, Olivia Steele, and Geoff Sturtevant. On to the shows. Longtime resident Otis Gyrie has his very own show here on our network, Scary Stories Told in the Dark, which you can hear every Sunday night. We also have Erik Peabody's Horror Hill, podcast dedicated to some of our deeper and darker tales. We hope you check him out. And Drew Blood's Dark Tales airs Fridays, featuring some southern down-home horror. And don't forget to check out the Fear from the Heartland archives, featuring more than 120 episodes. Well, friends, our weekly descent into the depths has just about come to a close. But before we go, I'd like to take a moment to thank you for joining us for tonight, and remind you to take a moment to stop by our iTunes page and leave Chilling Tales for Dark Nights a 5-star review and a kind word, and to follow us on Facebook, X, and Instagram if you've not done so already. And of course, subscribe to us on YouTube, where you can find an archive of our work going back to 2012. And consider signing up as a patron at our website, chillingtalesfordarknights.com, to show your support and get all of our content ad-free. I'm your host of the evening, Steve Taylor, and it's been a pleasure. Tune in again next week when we once again turn off the lights and turn on the dark. Sweet dreams, listener. Sweet dreams.
Chilling Tales for Dark Nights.